Good day. As we all know, in the run up to Joe Biden's inauguration, between 25 and 27,000 National Guards troops were deployed to Washington to protect Washington against, well, I'm not entirely sure against what or against whom. There's been lots of wild talk over the last few weeks, and especially in the run up to the inauguration, about domestic terrorism and about threats to state capitals and wild talk of right-wing militias and all that sort of thing. But in the event, the entire event passed entirely peacefully, and the alleged or expected or rumored attacks on state capitals never took place. I should say that I have always discounted the possibility that anything like that would ever happen. Um, Not only is the United States overall, despite what you hear, generally a law-abiding country, but the patriotic part of the population, which makes up the greater part of Donald Trump's electoral base, are amongst its most law-abiding segment. The idea that they would lead some kind of uprising up and down the United States, or would pose a serious threat to public order on a large scale, that was a possibility that I always discounted. I would say, in that context, that of course the events on the Capitol on the 6th of January were outrageous and wrong, but they have always seemed to me to be very much the exception, and also were, at least in part, a product of inadequate policing and inadequate security. So the deployment of all of these tens of thousands of troops to Washington always seemed to me both unnecessary and a mistake, and one which, by the way, sent a very bad signal internationally, giving the impression, whether intended or not, of a political class hiding behind its troops. But having said that, I accept that the decision was one that the political leaders, whoever they were in Washington who made this decision, were entitled to make. There had been an incident on the Capitol, a disturbing and in some ways violent incident on the Capitol on the 6th of January. So deployment of security forces to Washington in advance of the inauguration was a proper precaution. Maybe not on this scale, but the precautionary principle applies, and a proper precaution nonetheless. Having said that, it's still completely unclear to me who exactly gave the order for these deployments. The chain of command is completely unclear, and whoever that person or persons was or were, it's absolutely clear that they took no proper precautions at all. I mean by that they made no proper logistical arrangements to look after these troops. So we saw no attempt to place them, say, in Washington hotels or in proper barracks or in or provide for them decent living quarters. Many of them were camped out in the Capitol building itself. And of course, as is well known, after the incident ended, many of them were forced outdoors and had to camp out in the open in garage spaces and places like that, causing considerable anger and uproar. I would add that the troops themselves, quite apart from all of that, were subjected to all kinds of checks and investigations by the FBI to find out what links they had or may have had to these reputed, perhaps mythical right-wing groups, which again must have signaled to most of them that they were not fully trusted. But then we also now learn that over the course of their deployment, hundreds, 200 we hear, but perhaps more, have become infected as, with the disease which the United States suffers from over the course of this pandemic. Again, it seems no real precautions were taken to protect them from this, as once upon a time, I'm sure, there would have been. I can remember when I was a young child visiting a US base in Greece. This was in the 60s, and being, even as a child, extraordinarily, exceptionally impressed by the care the United States took for its forces, for the men and women who were serving in its armed forces. In fact, that impression has stayed with me all my life. It seems that when it comes to the people who protect Washington, D.C., the political class in Washington has other ideas. These people, it seems, are not fully trusted and have to be subjected to all kinds of checks. They're not properly housed or looked after, and health precautions basically break down in connection with them. I wonder what most of these young people feel. If I was amongst them, I would undoubtedly say to myself, this is the last time I'm prepared to put in a tour in Washington, D.C. Clearly, even the people who order me to go there aren't prepared to provide me with the conditions that I am entitled to and deserve. Thank you for joining me on this program. Please join us on our other channels too, myself and my colleague Alex Christoforou on the Duran. Please join Alex also on his channel. You'll find links under this video. Please come to our shop and buy the great things that you will find there. Our great t-shirts, our sweatshirts, our hoodies, our hats, our mugs. You support the Duran by doing so. Please search us out on our other platforms, BitChute, Patreon, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, and all the rest. You'll find links under this video. Please also support us through Patreon, Subscribestar, and PayPal. And I look forward to you joining me in my next program. Thank you very much.